So, hi, and welcome to the Payroll Nerd Podcast. My name is Brian Bride, and I've been working in the payroll industry for over 8 years, implementing payroll and HRS software. The goal of the podcast is to discuss the payroll people out in the world, the payroll people, the unsung heroes of many employers. Many of you out there spending hours making sure payroll is accurate and timely. Through this podcast, our aim is to shine the light of awesomeness on you folks and give you some tips and tricks to make it easier and more efficient for you to work. Today's episode, we're going to talk about Kronos ransomware attack and my experiences with crime and payroll. It's been a while, so, it's exciting for new content, and a bunch of people found these episodes without any new content. So I'd like to thank anybody who listened in the last 6 months, so it's fantastic. So I went to the UKG site for research, and I couldn't really find like the direct link, but I actually found information on the CNN article, so that will be in the show notes if you want to take a look there. So, I did find the actual incident summary. Appears that it affected the Kronos private cloud, which inside the private cloud is mostly time and scheduling functions. So, time and scheduling, who's it affects, that's like hourly employees, right? So hourly employees are generally on the lower end of the wage base, and you can see where this is going when you can't get the right hours written, and we'll talk about that in the next segment. So if you were a part of this, you'd be contacting your client service people and going from there. As of January 22nd of this year, 2022, all access had been restored. So it looks like the outage was down about 40 days if you started from the beginning all the way down to the end. And let's think about when this time was, right? So this time is lack of access at the end of the year. You got W-2s, you got all that stuff. Like, this must have been crazy bonuses. So I really feel the people affected by this and the teams at Kronos, imagine being the customer service, has probably been really, really tough. As of April 7th, there was a new update. Functionality had been restored, except for the workforce analytics product. There was another note saying that personal data of individuals from 2 customers were copied. It doesn't state about how many it was, who was affected. So if you had a Kronos hack and only 2 companies got stuff copied, depending on how big the company is, that could be good or bad. I did find an article by Susanna Vogel and HR Brew that had a reporting of 2,000 clients being affected by the hack. So about 2 weeks after the hack, maybe a week, 10 days, UKG offers CSV templates for tracking time and some workarounds. It looks like UKG has an offline time clock that they could have used to take the information. They would have to export the files, but so that was there. So when we think about this is my experience with payroll. The amount of manual work that had been done to figure this out must have been huge. You got shift differentials, you got overtime, all those kind of items. Many hospital systems use UKG. Dealing with COVID, not being able to log your hours. I mean, if you were a nurse, is probably a really, really poor experience, but that happens. Think about the late W-2s. What about when they be truing you up? When you finally get back online, are they doing W-2Cs? What kind of corrections are they doing? It's crazy. Spokesman for Manhattan Transmission Authority, Eugene Resnick, reported 20,000 out of 66,000 employees were affected. So a third of their employees had issues. Another source I found said of the 2,000 clients, there's about 8 million employees. So that's a lot of people with possible W-2 issues. So that's where I found the research on the amount of employees affected and who the really affect the hack was. So we'll get into the specific organizations in the next segment. So let's take a look at some of the organizations that were affected. Ascension Healthcare Company, they're multi-state, so I couldn't really exactly find who had the worst of all their different hospitals, but the information out there I found in a news article. Ascension St. Vincent in Indianapolis, quote, put in alternate systems to track time and process payroll. So I don't know if they went back to another default clock or they were just doing timesheets, like mail out timesheets most people had to do. City of Cleveland, was also UKG user. They mentioned all the manual work in regards to recreating financial and HR records that have been collected manually that they've been loaded into the UKG systems or on continuity information for reporting purposes. So think about that. So let's say, hey, we're going to go paper for all these items. Now what happens when everything gets back online? You're going to have to enter all that data back in. Maybe they have some kind of import templates. Maybe they don't. That's a crazy amount of extra work generated for these folks. The MTA employees filed suit against the MTA for failing to pay overtime wages. So we'll kind of talk about that in the next segment. But the burden of the pay is actually on the organization itself, not on the software leverage to make it easier. So if your system is calculating overtime incorrectly, you as the employer are liable, not UKG if you didn't pay overtime. So the MTA employees sued them for not paying overtime because there's no way for them to collect the hours. Scripps Health of San Diego was another victim, reported by NBC7 out of San Diego. So they got a memo from Scripps Health saying that workers would earn the pay that was on their November 26th check through January or when the system is restored. So what that meant for those folks was there's a bonus that was owed at the end of the year that didn't get paid till sometime in January or whenever the system was restored. It wasn't in the article. But their workaround was, we're just going to pay you what we paid you November 26th, regardless of the hours you worked, and then we'll true it up somewhere in January. So what does that tell you? It tells you your W-2s are wrong. You have to wait to file your taxes. Overtime, things like that might not be calculated. You're waiting on a bonus. That's pretty crazy, especially in the middle of COVID. So there's a company around 2019 that was called My Payroll HR. It was out of New York. The CEO was accused of taking $35 million of tax payments and other payments from clients. So here's when the big section hit them. When the notice went out to clients, there's no money in direct deposit sweep accounts. So what My Payroll HR company did was they didn't have their own direct deposit service. They didn't do any direct deposits, right? They relied on a third party named Cachet Financial Services to do the direct deposits. So they would send the file to Cachet. Cachet would initiate all the fund transfers and then debit My Payroll HR and then send the money to the employees. But in the last file that My Payroll HR sent, the ACH request was to send payroll dollars into My Payroll HR's account instead of Cachet Financial Sweeper holding account. So what that means is somebody at My Payroll HR was trying to send all the end user employees' money to their own account and then still make deposits into the employees' accounts, leaving Cachet Financial holding the ball. That's crazy. So when it was realized by Cachet, they reversed the transactions. So when they reversed the transactions, they started debiting people money, but people were getting money in and out. It was showing up later. They're getting 2 deposits and debit later. It's crazy. Michael T. Mann, he was the CEO of My Payroll HR. He also had issue with tax payments. He had another vendor for tax payments, and that came into about $9 million. So that's where the $35 million comes in. It's about $26 million in payroll funds, about $9 million in taxes. So here's where I came in with the experiences. I worked at Paylocity at the time, implementation, and we had a client come to us that we'd implement like in a week, right? So they're like, hey, we got this notice that there's no money. We need a change, right? So the client is very sweet and understanding. We had a lot of discussions about the tax payments because I mentioned earlier as a service bureau, one, we're not, or the payroll provider, we're not responsible for the money that's paid out at the end. I'm sure there's breach of contracts, things you can do, but the IRS isn't going to care. And before you came, right, well, that's not responsible for any tax payments, except for maybe unemployment at the end of a quarter. So, she came to us in the middle. We had tax payments that I can file saying that you paid that money, but if you don't get that money back and make the payments, there's possible notice. There's not much we can do about it. But we could file the returns for her, which is really why they're coming. by the end of the day, they were able to recover some funds, so that was great for them. That project, I was really proud of, just because, like, you had all those people. I forgot how many employees she had, like 50, but they got messed around in their payments and didn't turn out right. But this time, they were able to get paid on time, and it's really important that people get paid. It's important. Everybody has stuff auto paid set up, and check doesn't come in, you're in real trouble. So that one was pretty proud of. And then as the payroll industry, IRS doesn't give you a break if the payments aren't made, right? So that's a big thing that you need to look at. So that's why there's resources for you to use. The EFTPS is an important portal to make sure that payments are being sent to the federal government. So you can log into EFTPS and see the payments. It usually takes like 3 days. So if you pay on Friday, most people are going to post it by Monday or Tuesday. If you have a really large payroll, it's supposed to be next day. So I don't know how long it takes them to post it. So on Wednesday, you should be checking to make sure that your payment's posted. Make sure the vendor's paying. That should be part of your checks. Honestly, every Wednesday, hey, did my tax payment get sent in? Is it the right amount of money? States have their own portals for withholding and unemployment. So you should be checking those as well. Like, hey, make sure you double check this. Make sure you have access. A lot of times you have to access on there to give third-party administrator access to service bureaus to submit, unemployment, things like that. But you should always check it, Wednesday, Thursday next week. Make sure that the payments are being posted just so you don't have any issues. So in the end, Michael Mann was sentenced to 12 years in prison. He was also held to $101 million in restitution. So $101 million is crazy. What chance of getting anything like significantly paid back is so low at this point. So his 12 years in prison was probably 2019, 2020. It's federal prison, so they're not going to let him out, right? So he's going to serve 85%. So trust but verify, right? That's what you want to do. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to subscribe. Hey, the people that found me in my low highest is great. There's going to be some more stuff coming down the way if you enjoy podcasts. But anyways, if you want to get a follow, I'm on Twitter at Payroll Nerd Pond. This is the first video one, so, there you go. It's cool. Watch it twice, I guess. And if, hey, I like this guy. Can I hire him? Sure. You can hire me. Brian, B-R-I-A-N at brianbrideMBA.com is my email. BRIAN at brianbrideMBA.com. Sources will be in the notes. And hey, thanks for sticking with me. Subject for next week, not really sure, but we will find something and talk to you guys then. Bye.